Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. I'm your host, Jefferson K. Rogers. Excited to announce we got two badass MFers in the studio with me today, Mr. Jeffrey Fieldstad, who's here with me most of the time, and my guy, Clark Manwaring. He is the Chief Recruiting Officer here at JKR Windows. Been doing this a long time. Got started in door-to-door early as a teenager and found a place, and he's been here ever since. I've been here with JKR Windows the last 3 or 4 months, and we've done some cool stuff. We got some big plans for the future. And today, we're going to be talking about some insights about recruiting and how that's evolved for Clark over the years, how it's evolved for each of us over the years and the way that we look at it and the approaches and the psychology. And I'm excited to jam on this because in sales and in life, and in no matter what kind of business you're in, you're going to need to get good at recruiting if you want to do something special. And we plan on doing something special here at JKR Windows. And it's really cool. I think we'll go into a little bit on how our relationship evolved over the past 6 months and how you ended up here. But welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, super stoked to be here. Been here for now 100 days here at JKR. To give, I guess, a little bit of context as to who I am working with JKR. So I've been in the door-to-door game now for 13 years. And I started in landscaping. So my uncle owned a landscaping business. I knocked doors in the summer to kind of get some business for him. Knocking in Mesa, Scottsdale, Gilbert, out in 110 degree plus heat. Very similar to you starting your door knocking career.
That's commitment, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know any different, but all I knew is I wanted to change my life and nobody was going to do it for me. And if it had to be in 120 degree weather, I was going to do whatever it took.
Yep, 100%. Felt very similar. I don't think I realized at the time, but looking back, that there were probably days where I was out earning, of course, people my same age, but maybe even my parents at the time, and I was just too young to know it. So started down that route right around 16 years old. Ended up serving a 2-year LDS mission in Colombia, which I count as part of my experience in door-to-door, of course, and came back and trained missionaries at the Missionary Training Center in Provo, and worked as a director there. So I taught languages at the MTC, and then ended up getting right back into just total sales again. Got into wholesaling real estate. So with wholesaling real estate, I was knocking on people's doors and offering to buy. Can we swear on the podcast?
I do.
All right, perfect. I was telling them that they had a shitty house and I was going to buy it for half off. So it was knocking on hoarder houses, meth houses, just some of the worst houses imaginable.
This was in Arizona as well? Or here?
Right here in Utah, yeah.
Did you do the signs also that say, we buy houses
we buy
for
houses.
cash?
Yeah, we had bandit signs, yeah. And we'd get calls from cops all the time, take this down. And but yeah, I mean, that was kind of a new thing at the time. There wasn't really anybody knocking doors for wholesaling real estate.
Yeah.
And so we pioneered that. Very, very tough knock. Some of the worst doors of my life. I mean, cops called on you. People are offended that you think their house is worth less.
Well, a lot of times they're junky freaking houses that look like they're vacant. Very,
very junky. Yeah. And you're talking to people that are usually like immobile. I mean, when you're talking about hoarder houses and stuff, these are people that are, sick and in a bad place. And so sometimes there was a lot of value to it. You felt like you were serving another person. But it's not like Windows where every single time it's a silver bullet. You are serving a homeowner. There's real value there. There were times where we'd watch members of our team buying houses that probably were worth $500,000 or $600,000 from unsuspecting old people that still think that their home is worth $150K. So there was just a lot of just predatory practice, and it didn't jive well with my personal morals. I never really built teams there. So a lot of my team building experience came down the road working at a solar company called Blue Raven Solar. So kind of got a job by accident recruiting for them and starting up a department there. They kind of had this defunct department that was on its way out. They were scrapping this multi-million-dollar program. And so I just said, I bet you I could do this.
That was your start.
That was the start.
Bet you I could do this.
I'm sure I could. I bet you I could figure this out. I think
awesome.
Most times that's kind of how it starts. You know, you see opportunity and you're like, there's nothing different from me and these other people that I see that are successful. I've got a working brain. I've got 2 working hands. I know that I can put myself to work and do what other people can, and even what other people can't. And so it was a lot of just, it was a lot of trial and error, but we ended up scaling that to about 72 recruiters. And at its peak, we were onboarding and getting people into the field to the tune of about 1,200 to 1,500 people at a time per month.
Wow,
So
that's awesome.
Massive.
How long did it
recruiting
take you to get to that point with 72 recruiters, 1,500 people a month?
Year and a half. It took
18 months.
Yeah, it took 18 months to do, a lot of bankrolling from the company at that point. But it ended up successful. We recruited a team at its peak of about 13,000 active reps. They did a little under $500 million in revenue, and then my team got bought. So it got to be part of my first acquisition. That was from SunPower. Rest in peace, SunPower. And after that, got into more ownership roles. I was like, I'm not as, I think like you guys have this entrepreneurial spirit that's like, if I can do it for myself with nothing and bootstrap this. I can't say that I was that brave right off the bat. I consider myself an intrapreneur first, providing value for a company on the internal as if I owned it. But then I did take that chance and ended up founding a solar company. We ended up scaling that really big. We scaled it up to where it was doing about 150 deals a month within its first year.
Incredible.
It was a lot of fun to get to create from the ground up, and it's just such a different experience. The 0 to 1 start is different from like 1 to 2. Scaling something that exists versus something that doesn't exist. It's exhilarating. It's also tiring. You know that.
It is.
Takes a lot of emotional energy for sure.
So much. Yeah. So I moved from that into more of a consultative role where I was around the door-to-door industry, just building up sales teams in alarms, pest control, even window companies. Home warranties were done door-to-door. We did life insurance team building. Just if you could sell it commission only, we were building a team for it. So got the privilege of working with some of the largest door-to-door companies in the industry. It just very eye-opening in all the good ways and all the bad ways. And then ended up in an ownership seat again with an HVAC and solar company out in LA. Scaled that up to now about 9 figures worth of revenue per year. And then I stumbled upon JKR. I was, if I can be vulnerable, it was a really rough time in my life meeting you guys. I make it sound like you guys caused that. Before meeting you guys.
No, it was opposite.
Yeah. It was a really rough time personally for me where, I was working 70, 80-hour work weeks building these teams, and I made that my hobby. I made it what I ate, what I slept, and I started losing sleep, not going to the gym, not eating well. My marriage suffered. And I missed so many big things. I don't want to get emotional on here, but I missed not only my daughter's first words, I missed her first 5 words. I missed her first 10 words. Like I missed so much because I was traveling. I was always working. I was locked in my office and no one could disturb,
Yep.
That was my life. And so coming to JKR originally, I was like, I came in under the premise of consulting with you guys and providing some external value. And then you were like, well, let's take this a step further. I think that there's value to be had internal. And I was like, I can't leave my baby, this company that I've built.
Yeah.
But, it takes really, and this is the topic of today, it takes amazing recruiters to bring in people that not need the opportunity, but people that will come and just expand on that opportunity. And there was fertile soil at JKR for me to come in.
Right place, right time, right message.
Yep.
And that's what recruiting is about. It's providing somebody an opportunity, whether they were ready or open to it at that time or even thought that they needed something. Because maybe you hadn't even thought that you needed something yet, but this change of perspective, because my version of that story is a little bit different than yours. And it was almost like the stars had aligned for both of us, both of our needs, emotionally and in business, where we just ended up at the right place at the right time with the right message, both your message and my message, and we lined up, man. Now we've been working together for 4 months, and we're teed up to do some incredible things over the next couple of years. And we've all got to see this play out, and even like really recently, all of these things that just start to line up.
Yep.
With relationships and opportunity and attracting great people.
Yeah, I think you said something pretty powerful right there, Clark. Need versus want, right? A lot of times when people are recruiting people, when we talk about the recruiting, is if you're going to recruit somebody great, you want to recruit somebody who wants to do something big, not somebody who needs something. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times when it comes to recruiting, people are thinking, man, I this person needs it. And so they almost feel like it's this gift to them where they need this opportunity.
That almost never ends out well.
Almost never. Yeah, once in a while, right? There's exceptions to everything. But somebody who wants to do something big usually isn't the person who needs it. And I think that's an important thing where you were at that time. But also I think your values and characters, and be willing to have conversations about those things and figure out what does somebody want, and then do your values and goals align for the future, right?
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. Yeah, I think just to kind of end that and put a cap to what we've done so far at JKR, I wouldn't even say we're teed up for big things. I would say we've already done really incredibly big things. Looking at the revenue on Salesforce today, in my department in the last 100 days, just shy of $5.5 million of coordinator and director revenue. Mm-hmm. It's incredible to see just and how ready JKR was.
I'm not sure if you looked at the percentage of total revenue over that 100 days, but it's a fairly large percentage of the total revenue produced in the entire company. So you're right. We have done a lot of great things in a very short period of time, but it's like this momentum that we have right now, and the relationships and some of the challenges that we've already been through and we've overcome, and the things that we've done are going to look really, really small compared to things that we're going to do.
I know it. Yeah. And just excited for the future. I think that, you're absolutely right, Jeff, when you talk about the right person in the right seat. The right person is very rarely the person that is looking for that thing or needing that thing. The right person for most seats is already going to be happy and thriving in their seat elsewhere. Yep. They're already making an employer really, really happy. They're already making an employer a lot of money. They're already probably making really good money themselves in a lot of cases. And so it's not going to be this person who's desperate for the opportunity that ends up changing the business forever. And so it takes kissing a lot of frogs to get there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wouldn't you say it makes it a little bit harder, though, with that conversation, recruiting somebody who is, wants to do something big versus somebody who needs it?
Oh.
Kind of go through that process a little bit, because I think most people miss this process. Oh. They think that, okay, if they're going to recruit and build a team in anything, whatever it may be, and they find someone who needs it, that's an easy conversation usually. Like, okay, you need it. Here's the value benefit. Here's the offer. They take it because they need it, right?
Yeah.
Versus somebody who wants it, and somebody who wants to do something big, but maybe they're comfortable, or maybe not even comfortable, but they're happy. They're providing a lot of value where they're currently at. They haven't been actively searching for something different. What do you see as the difference in that process?
I would probably say the discovery phase is just so much deeper when you're talking with somebody that is already perceivably happy where they're at, and just kind of understanding their internal drivers. Oftentimes we'll teach our recruiters here, it's the principle of ikigai, comes from Japan, and I might be botching this idea, but it's essentially this Venn diagram of 4 circles that intersect at its core. And those 4 circles represent principles of how you do your work. One of them being doing what you're actually good at, what you're talented at. And then number 2, doing something that you actually love, which you might think those are the same thing. They're oftentimes not. Number 3 is doing something that actually makes you some money. And then number 4 being something that positively impacts the world. Very rarely have I seen that somebody who's happy with where they're at, when they learn that thing, they realize that there's a deficit there. They'll usually say, I'm making good money. I am good at my job. I do enjoy my job, but oh man, I'm in wholesaling. I don't feel like I'm positively impacting souls. I'm not helping other people do their lives better and look back and say that changed or altered the course of my life because I was there to help them make that decision. And I believe that recruiting is a turnoff point that drastically changes somebody's destination. And so they're naturally scared of that. Like, what does that deviation look like from where I'm at now, where I'm happy? What am I happy or am I less happy down the road? So understanding in that discovery phase where there's deficit and then really just tying them into an opportunity that we fully have conviction maxes out each of those 4 things that creates Ikigai.
Yeah.
What you call it, Ikigai?
Ikigai.
You've never heard of that?
I could be saying it super wrong.
Yeah. It's like the life's purpose for each individual, I guess is how
I just wrote down purpose.
Yeah.
Because that's, in my experience and the people that I've attracted to JKR Windows over the years, it's been, my explanation is not going to be quite as eloquent as Clark's, but it's kind of bringing some awareness to their situation. And you're coming to the table with this excitement and enthusiasm about life and what you do on a daily basis. And they're like, well, wait a second, I don't really have that. And before they even know what that is, they're picking up on this energy of there's some excitement around this, and there's a new energy and this vibrational impact that we can have on people's lives if they're in the right place at the right time. Some people are just like, that is really uncomfortable for me. I'm going to go ahead and stay right here where I'm at. But sometimes the right place at the right time with the right message can change somebody's life. It changed my life. I was a mechanic and I was a carpenter, and I grew up around a bunch of people that were blue collar and that told me, had convinced me that I was never going to be a salesperson just based off of their own experiences. But for whatever reason, at the right moment, from the right person, I got that message and it sunk in. And all of a sudden it was like the veil had been lifted. And now there's a new possibility for me as a salesperson and in my income earning potential. And I don't have to wait around years and years and years to develop the skills and to follow the traditional corporate path to earn $100,000. I could go and do it. I just saw this guy do it. He's nothing special. I could go and do this like right now if I wanted to. And how cool is that to be able to have the opportunity with the skills that you've developed and that you teach your crew to go and change that many lives? Because just in a short period of time, whether they come to work for us or not, there's now this new awareness and a seed planted in them, just like it was in me. Those people are never going to be the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And if
100%.
they are, they chose to be the same. But there's thousands and thousands of people already in the last 100 days just in what we're doing here at JKR Windows that you've changed their lives. Mm-hmm. And think about the tens of thousands of people that we're going to change over the next 5 years.
So fun to think about. Oftentimes we've thought about this like football stadium, just filled with people that we have impacted, and that's a visualization of what I think all 3 of us and beyond the scope of the 3 of us are capable of. It's such a fun thought. Mm-hmm. There's no thought to the money created. There's no thought for myself of the paycheck earned. It's just seeing like, look how many lives are positively impacted because we came up with something that works. It's replicable. We can promise that if you will dedicate effort and attitude to this, which is something that I firmly believe all human beings are capable of dedicating, that we've got the recipe book.
Yeah. Talk about fulfillment.
It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Finding something you can get excited about.
So I think because along these lines, something we've been talking about recently is that recruiting is a sales process.
Yeah.
Where a lot of times great salespeople don't buy into the fact that they can also become great recruiters. And a lot of times vice versa too. I'm a great recruiter, maybe not the best at sales. When really it's the exact same process with it just a little bit of a different focus. Mm-hmm. Maybe talk to us about, Clark, how you see that recruiting is a sales process.
Man, I think some of the best sales trainers that I've ever worked with sometimes refer to their in-home consultation as an interview. Like I ran an HVAC company. Oftentimes that sales process is called a comfort interview or a comfort questionnaire. And that frame is just, it puts somebody at ease. It puts the homeowner on the other end of that table at ease, number one, because they just feel like, oh, you care about me. You're invested in me. and it's more about me and my comfort and less about your product, less about you. It puts them into this frame where they're like, I'm the hero. This is my guide. We've got a problem to solve together. So I think that good recruiting practice actually lends itself very, very well to sales first, honestly. And that treating it like an interview also gives you power back. I mean, one of the most powerful things about the interviewing feel when you come into an interview at JKR is just how powerful my recruiters are at guiding the conversation, making the person feel like they're in the cockpit, but they don't have to know how to fly the plane. You know, and I think that part of that is that it's the power quotient. Who holds the power in that interview? And this isn't to brag or make my recruiters better than, but generally the recruiter holds the power because they have something that the other person wants. They hold income, opportunity, growth potential, and so usually it's that recruit wanting the thing from us and not us trying to sell and pull them across the finish line. And oftentimes, I think some of the worst, less sticky, most likely to cancel sales, you guys can probably agree with me, are the ones where you had to pull a homeowner across the finish line. You had to really just give it all you got. 3 hours in the home, they're exhausted. Okay, I'll just sign so that we can get this done with.
Yeah, and when Jeff talks about the sales process, I think everybody thinks about this a little bit differently. But from my experience, I've been on both sides of it. Because early on, as a business owner, I'm trying to grow a team, and I'm trying to figure out how to talk to people about it. And when you're talking to people like you've got the sales breath, but on the recruiting side, and they can tell you're a little bit desperate to build your team and to build up your resources, it's a completely different feel.
Yeah.
So the sales process at a kitchen table selling a home services product is very similar. There's just some different psychology involved. Because depending on where you're at in the recruiting process, early on, you are trying to do those pullbacks, and you're trying to keep that position of power. And you're trying to talk about this in a way that it's going to be attractive, and not that you're desperate to bring people onto your team. Whether you are or not, the things that you say are going to make people feel differently. So, this is something that I'm constantly evolving in the way that I think about it and the way that I approach it. Then there's also these different stages where later on in the process, now we've got to balance that psychology with setting proper expectations and making sure that people know, especially in door-to-door, that there's going to be some challenging moments.
Yeah.
This is a very high-paid career path for you, and it's for a reason, and it comes at a cost. And we've got to build this foundation with people, just like we do in the sales process at the kitchen table, to build all this value and set expectations and tee this thing up where all your sales are out of the way, and now you're just closing.
Yep.
And in the recruiting process, it's very similar. So I'd love to hear you guys' perspective on this, because we've had a lot of interactions with our recruits and with our sales leadership talking about these things. And I know that there's so many other people out there that struggle with this and could use some perspective to help them become better at navigating this process and knowing where these things fit into the process. So at the right moment, at the right time, they have the foundation built, and now they can lay it on heavy. And for the right person, they've already built that emotional connection, and they're committed, and they are bought into this thing, and now they're ready for all those expectations to be set really high, so they know what it's going to take for them to go be successful.
You described it 100%. I think that, these people need to feel, some emotional impulse to purchase, right? They need to feel some sort of emotional pull towards what we're doing before we lay that on. I know a lot of recruiters in the industry make it like this, throw shit against a wall and see what sticks approach, where they're like, let's just file a ton of people into a group, and we're going to say, all right, gents, you're going to war. This is going to be the hardest thing you ever do in your lives. And then, they see who files out of the room. Whoa, this isn't for me. I'm out of here. And then the people that do stick maybe aren't the right avatar that they're looking for. But if they stick, they're like, you're on the team, And
why I think people act like that a lot of times is because they forget the concept of developing people. Right? If you're a leader and you believe that anybody can become a leader because you're willing to pour into that person, then you look at people a little bit differently when you're recruiting them.
Yeah.
You're looking for certain qualities that are maybe intangibles. I've always called them they're intangible qualities, right? Where a lot of your obvious recruits that are like, man, they have this skill, their resume looks perfect, but for some reason they're still looking. For some reason they're still not the right
Bouncing
person.
between
Yes.
things, yeah.
Where sometimes the people that win, in fact, most of the time, the people that win the biggest, their resume actually says the opposite.
Yeah.
Because they have these intangible things inside of them. And it's like, that's the person. And I think if you're a leader, you're looking at people through the glasses of this person has the characters, values, morals, and traits that I'm looking for, and I can develop that into that person.
I agree. I just think at the end of the day, it's harmony. I've heard on the podcast so many times, and we've had these conversations about balance being non-existent. And the balance, if we're truly talking about balance between expectation and hype, we'll call it, there's no such thing in the interview. I just truly don't believe in it. I think that it's this harmony. You have to understand, have I gotten this person to the point where emotionally they feel bought into what they can achieve, the probability of actually achieving it, the timeline to do it, and then that's the hot button. That's where I can really come in and say, these are the expectations, and I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm going to give them the expectations plain and clear, and I'm going to commit them to those things. But you're right. Just coming in with one approach or the other of like, it's going to be the easiest thing you ever do. You're going to make crazy money. It's one-dimensional. And it's not going to get the type of person that you want, quick, easy, big money. Do you think that attracts naturally the person that you want on your team? Nope. Absolutely not. And then the opposite of that being like this hard ass approach. Like, it's going to be like going to war, but we just do it every day. I get my teeth kicked in and then I'm ready to go the next day. It doesn't have to be that either. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny you mentioned this type of person. It's important that we don't box ourselves into one type of person from that. We were talking about this the other day with some of the leaders at JKR that, there have been people that come into JKR. We had this one girl on our team who crushes it currently. You would have never guessed based on her interview that she would have crushed it. Mm-hmm. I mean, she was willing to talk through the points, but it was the quietest interview, no marketing, no sales experience, like couldn't really look you in the eye during the interview, but she was saying the right things and you could tell she was trying. So, that's enough. Like you can commit to these things. You can at least have a conversation with me. That's enough. But then you get some of these people that, multi-100,000 in real estate sales, for example, that wouldn't deign to touch a door. And that person might take, it's a different conversation. And we don't even have to mention their lack of willingness to knock a door. You might find somebody who is really, really talented at sales already, but thinks that they have it figured out. They're not going to commit to coming in and being humble and learning, and they might not succeed. There's not a silver bullet type of recruit. That's actually what makes this opportunity so beautiful, is the ability to take anybody. It doesn't matter your skin color. It doesn't matter your religion. It doesn't matter your sexual orientation. It doesn't matter any of those things. Just like sports. We've got some really ugly people in the NFL that make incredible money. They're really good at what they do. Had nothing to do with the way that they look or think. Had everything to do with their dedication to their sport. That's what makes what we do so beautiful, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you said something about harmony, which is pretty powerful because, in music, they say you don't get harmony if everybody's singing the same note. And it's important to understand that having different kinds of notes is what makes harmony. Right? And the same thing in business. Having a culture and having an environment that can thrive is having people from all different walks of life, all different goals and aspirations, but together wanting to get better and wanting to do something big is the common thread, right? It is that common value is, hey, what do you want out of life? And can we help you get what you want? That's where you get something special. And that's where culture and environment really come from, right? Is do you have a culture and environment of growth and excitement and the future? Even though one person might only want to make $50,000 a year, and there might be another person in that same room wanting to make $5 million, but both of them, if they're wanting to progress and get better, that's what makes a special environment, right?
The destination is different for every person, but the vehicle that they choose to travel in is the same. And that would therefore imply that when they all hop into this same vehicle, we want to get to the destination, no matter what that is per person. We are willing to make sacrifices to make the vehicle that we're all traveling in better together. Yep. Absolutely.
It's awesome.
One of the things I was thinking about as we were talking through all this stuff is we have this perspective of, being in the industry a long time, working for a lot of different companies now, to the tune of, recruiting 1,500 people a month. And I brought something up a second ago about just where you start and these initial repetitions that you're going through as a business owner or a sales leader early on in your career, trying to navigate these things. And I think they're conversations for both sides of it. Because when I read the 5 levels of leadership, there was a lot of really complex things going on in that book that I wasn't quite ready for yet. But I had some things to look forward to. And when it comes to recruiting, as we were talking, I just couldn't help but think of this concept that got brought to me early on in the process. As I was trying to recruit and I only had 3 people showing up, and you bring somebody in, no matter how enthusiastic I was, you bring them into an office and they're like, wait, this is everybody? There's only 3?
This is the whole thing?
That's different than showing up to a room of 20 people. And I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram, and I check my messages like every week on Instagram. So it was like a week old. And I kind of felt bad. I hurried and messaged him. But he was asking for some help because of a post that he had seen recently about recruiting and leadership. And he's trying to figure out how to grow a team. And what do you tell somebody when it's just them? And they feel like they've got all the knowledge and they can close at a high level, but for whatever reason, they just cannot build a team, and they keep spinning their wheels, and he's running ads and he's bringing people in, and he just hasn't been able to make progress. And there's some of these things that are kind of those intangibles that you talk about in business, that until you start to pick up on those and you can start working in the direction of these things that are going to help, people are out there just spinning their wheels.
I think that one of the most poignant things that I've learned at JKR that would make me respond to that question different now than I would have 100 days ago when I started. I'll show you how I would have responded 100 days ago. I would have said, well, you need this system, you need this process, you need, this amount of ad
as a
spend.
consultant.
Yeah.
And I only charge $15,000 a month.
And this is how much I'll charge you for it, right? Maybe not even bringing that. If I'm trying to offer free value, I still would have been like, here's the actionable things you need to do to get a team. But knowing what I know now after transforming my life working with you guys, and I don't say this to brown nose, I mean this in the sincerest form. I've lost weight and I'm in better shape than I am now. I have more energy bringing into the day. I spend more time with my family. I have cut social media out of my life. Like I am just altogether a different type of person. And I feel like that has affected my ability to recruit so much. And now I feel like I see things from this perspective of you need to be the vessel first. Like a broken, this broken vessel. If you think of a vessel as like this cup, you cannot hold any liquid. You're not going to be able to pass along to the next person. The way that I would respond to that is that leaders inspire. And there's a difference between motivating and inspiring. I know these guys that can get up in front of a crowd and just be like 30 minutes of just nonstop in your face, firing you up. We're ready to run through a wall. I don't believe that's inspiration. I believe that inspiration is long lasting. I have now seen the objective. I've seen somebody get there, and I want that for my life so bad that I'm willing to self-motivate now for days and days on end without seeing that template and get there. And I think that is where I would start. If I'm a leader that I feel like I'm not building this team, I'm frustrated, what systems and processes? Look inward first. Look at yourself as a leader and say, does my lifestyle inspire? And lifestyle doesn't mean Lamborghini. I drive the same truck since college. It's this crappy old truck. I do not care what people see me drive. I don't care where people see me live, regardless of how much money I make. What I hope inspires from my life is that I'm an incredible father of now 2, incoming number 2 kids.
Congratulations. It's a big deal.
Yeah,
Exciting.
super excited that I put my wife on this pedestal. I do everything that I can to make sure that my wife has her needs met. And that at work, I have the happiest department. It's not going to be this department of only badasses, but they're going to be the happiest people here, and they're going to be just having this incredible result. My body is going to be a testament to my ability to take willpower and run every day, eat the right things, meal prep, go to the gym, prioritize my health and my mental health, that is what inspires. People are like, forget the money for a second. I want to live a life like that. People at the end of the day, I think, just want to be happy.
Yeah, I think money is a byproduct of those things. It's funny because you say this. I wrote down here earlier, the way to be attractive is to actually do and be who and what you say.
Yeah.
And I wrote develop yourself. So as we're talking about this, we're all kind of on the same wavelength that you want to attract those type of people. You have to become somebody that those people want to aspire to be.
Well, and here's, I think the problem is a lot of people want to attract somebody who they wish to become to make their life easier. And so they say all the right things, but then they're actually a fraud. They're not actually the right person. And so then it becomes depressing, frustrating, challenging. And then they might even attract somebody into their business, but to be able to retain that person is a totally different thing, right? Because there's sometimes you look at social media, for example. You see all these fancy cars and houses and all this kind of stuff might actually attract somebody in. But then when they get there, what retains somebody is, are they the person that I actually want to become? And that's what really retains people. And if you're that person, then, money and the cars and the houses, all that kind of stuff, that's an automatic byproduct if you're the right kind of person. But you got to be the right kind of person first, And I think that it's powerful what you say, dude. Which, thank you for the compliments. I'm honored that you say those things, because I think both of us are always constantly trying to challenge each other to become better, challenge everybody around us to become better. And I think it's because we also do that first. And it's an important thing. And I think what Clark just said is probably the most fundamental basic skill somebody needs to build anything in life, whether it's a good marriage, if you're going to build a good family, if you're going to build a great business, if you're going to become a great leader. You've got to be willing to become that person first and inspire people to want to become that. You can't make somebody want to do anything, right? All you can do is provide an example.
A players recruit A and B players. C players recruit D and F players.
Amen.
That's just the reality of recruiting. Become that A player first.
And so what do you got to do to become an A player?
Man, we have 2 hours here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes so much development, and then it takes reps in the trenches.
Yep.
It takes actually doing the thing. I think that's the thing that people forget, and they just fall in love with, like, this idea of what I'm going to achieve. I can't wait until this amount of money in my bank account. I can't wait until this car or house. I divorce the outcome and fall in love with the process. And for recruiting, that means reps. Fall in love with shoulder tapping somebody at the sauna when you're at the sauna at the gym, and talk to another person who also is pushing themselves and going through this journey, that are looking for what you have to offer them. Put in reps to meet with as many people per day as possible. Put yourselves in 6 to 8 interviews a day. You've got yourself a massive team in no time. Put in the reps.
I think a lot of times, you hear this, you say love the journey and the destination, however you said it, this eloquent way of saying it. I've always said the journey freaking sucks, right? I hate the journey. It sucks. But when you arrive at the destination, it's the journey you appreciated. So it's interesting because every time I hear somebody say, enjoy the journey, it's always a person who has arrived at a great destination because they realize that it was the journey that made them feel the way they feel about the destination. For example, if you're going to climb Mount Everest, I can almost guarantee that most people that get to the top never go, I love these freezing cold temperatures. I love these situations I'm putting myself in. But then they get to the top and they go, that journey was so worth it. Why didn't I appreciate it more? Well, because it sucked while you were doing it. Same thing is at the gym. You go to the gym, it hurts. You are uncomfortable. You're putting yourself through pain. And a lot of times it's not like you're at the gym and you're like, man, I love the pain that I put. That's why they call it pain. It's uncomfortable. Or like when a woman's having a baby, you're getting ready to have a baby. I promise you the first question you don't ask your wife is, how bad did it hurt?
Yeah.
Because you're paying attention to what? The destination, the baby. You just got this incredible gift, right? And you're not going, well, how bad did it hurt to get the gift? That's an obvious, right? The gift was worth the pain. The destination was worth the journey.
This is something worth putting a lot of time and attention and thought into, because it's going to be difficult. The past 6.5 years since starting my company, I feel really good about everything that we've accomplished and where we're at right now. And in those moments, I read a book called The Happiness Advantage, And I started thinking back on all of the challenges. And if you ask a successful person how challenging it was to get to where they are, they very rarely can think of anything. They're like, it's been freaking awesome. I learned so many great things. Because I think it's less that, you need to enjoy the journey. It's more like you've made a commitment. You signed up for this. You're willing to do whatever it takes. And you try and do it with a good attitude. And you sometimes tolerate some shit in those moments because you're focused ahead on what you're trying to do and what's going to be necessary to reach that you just don't look at it like a normal person would. Like, this is so difficult. It's hard. I'm not sure if I can keep doing this. But it's an important exercise for you to go through, because if you want to do anything special, for that person that sent me that message on Instagram, I'm not positive, but I'm almost certain, because of how many of these conversations I've had, that he's going through this crisis right now in the way that he's thinking about what is going to be necessary for him to build a team. And that's development in himself and in his skills and abilities and leadership and reading books and becoming the person that's going to attract a team and the work. And a lot of times, as I was part of a lot of these door-to-door consulting groups and masterminds, there's these guys that have came in and they think that just by showing up with a little bit of clout and having done something special in the past, they're just going to magically build a door-to-door team out of thin air. And maybe that happens 1 in 1,000 for a guy that's very charismatic and he's got some leadership abilities and he attracts a team. But for the other 999, you're going to have to bootstrap this thing. You're going to have to become the person that can attract and communicate and cast vision and be a leader and go out and lead from the front. So if you're listening to this and you're having that crisis, this is not going to happen by osmosis.
Yeah, it's it's like a lot of times I think people ask those questions, and it's great they do, right? We always love helping somebody. But a lot of times it's because they're in the moment of negotiating the price. Mm-hmm. They're negotiating with themselves, is this really worth it? And the answer is yes when you get to the other side.
Always is.
But if you have a trophy real estate property, or you've got some of the nicest jewelry, or if you've got a rare piece of artwork, they're not discounting that. You're not going to expect a discount from something that's very valuable. And for some reason, people are always expecting a discount on a dream life.
I wish I had me an easy button too.
Yeah, it just doesn't exist, right? So you can't ever pay a lesser price to get a bigger reward. I've always said expecting more for doing less is a social and economic disaster. It doesn't work. You can't expect more for doing less. Now, that doesn't mean your entire career you're going to have to do more and more and more and more to get more, but you're going to have to become more and more and more and more to get more. And so that might be through knowledge, through experience, building a bigger team, attracting better people. All of these things are a piece in order to build a better business, right? Mm-hmm. And as recruiting is one of them, you've got to become that incredible person who people look at and say, yeah, I know they're willing to pay a price. I know they are who they say they are. I know they're willing to do the things. They've done what they're trying to teach me to do. And so you kind of command that respect of that person. You don't have to ask for it. You don't have to demand it. It just happens because they see this person is who they say they are, right? And a lot of times people are trying to negotiate that price. And sometimes they are that person, but they don't do a good job of using their words to describe their vision and saying, hey, here's where we're going. This is what we've got to do to get there. And so then people don't even know what they're buying into because they just feel like it's this monotony of this daily grind, and someone forgets to keep them focused on where we're going.
Just another area of development that you got to do, because I know a lot of people like that they're workers and they are consistent and they're disciplined. Mm-hmm. But they're also years and years later still doing the exact same thing. And they haven't developed in these other important areas of their life, like communication and leadership and being able to cast a vision and be enthusiastic about the possibilities that they can attract other people into. Mm-hmm. And that's a large portion of the sales community, are those types of people that are great technicians. And they can go out there and they start over every day. Mm-hmm. And they're great at it. And they got a great mentality. But we're trying to do something special as leaders to show people the possibility, because there's still going to be a large majority of people that follow that path, no matter how much influence they get from that type of message. But there's opportunities that we have every day in recruiting to expose people to more possibilities, just like me when I came from being a mechanic. I remember vividly those moments because they completely changed the entire trajectory of my life. The very first day that I ever showed up on the doors, I still had a bunch of black shit under my fingernails, and I had long, greasy-ass hair, and I was getting ready to change my life. I used to have some hair. I used to have some hair. It was really wispy up here. I was hanging on to it for as long as possible. And I was getting ready to change my freaking life. And you remember those emotional moments in your life where everything was about to change. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I think back on those big moments. And we have an opportunity as leaders to have that little moment in other people's lives.
You know, I think that you said something really, really crucial right here. And that's that you would have never guessed if you were to go back in time and show you at that point, grime under your fingernails, you know, greasy hair, they would have never guessed that they would end up like you. And that doesn't refer to the hair. That they would have never guessed the journey that they've been on, how happy their marriage was, and how well behaved their kids are, how great their business has grown. And that's not just to hype you up. That's to say what a gap and gain you've gone over that time. And I think that good recruiters are able to. They have this Christ-like quality. I'm a Christian myself. And I know that a lot of the leaders at our company are. So hopefully this isn't out of bounds to say most Christians believe that I think all Christians believe that God can see the end from the beginning. And so he can hand tailor experiences for you. Good recruiters tend to do the same thing, where they can see more in you than you see in yourself. And they cast that vision and they say, let's go down that path mentally right now. Let's tell you a story. Good sales follows the same procedure. And that is how you get A players. Once you become the A player, we answered that question. How do you go about that conversation? I think of, Jeff, your story, starting out this small financial services branch, not making the money you want, and then a mentor comes in, grabs your face, like you told us, and said, if only I had 100 of you.
Yep.
Because this is what I see in you that you don't currently see. And you were like, holy shit.
Yep.
It unlocked what I couldn't see in myself.
That's one of those moments.
He saw,
Yep.
I had shivers when I heard that story. And I remember that same moment for myself. My interview at JKR felt the same way. You know, I even said it feels like a therapy session. I was tearing up.
And our goal was
you
not
gave
to
me
do
this,
that either.
You gave me this mental shake of my head and said, if only we had more of you, essentially. If only we had this, we can make this happen. This is the vision that I see. And I'd heard that vision so many times. If you're in door to door and you've heard what I'm about to say a million times and this is trite and stale to you, I promise you it's different here at JKR. A little self-promotion here. You hear all the time, we're a self-development company first and we're a window, solar, roofing company second. You hear that so many times that it's just kitschy. It's not true. You see that actually ring true here at JKR. You hear, we're doing something big, we're scaling to the moon, we're actually going to be $1 billion company. You hear that all the time. You hear that from a ton of businesses and brands, especially in door-to-door. There's a lot of big thinkers, to their credit, but not big doers, not big people actually making that happen, that have the blueprint for it. And so I think that is the equation. It's understanding, like, what is the dream outcome for you? What is the probability of achieving that here as opposed to there? I tell people all the time, can you retire a multimillionaire working at McDonald's? I truly believe it. I actually do. When you shake your head, no, I truly believe it.
If you buy their stock,
Here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. You got to ride your bike to work every single day. Got to live in your parents' basement. You got to wear the same clothes that you wore as a teenager when you got that job for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You can't get married, can't have kids. You got to invest and save every dollar you've got, work into management, work into ownership. And then by the age of 75, 80 years old, if you live that long, you'll retire a multimillionaire at McDonald's. That's the equivalent of saying the destination, we're going to get there by a rowboat with holes in it.
Yeah.
I believe that there are opportunities that can get anybody to their destination. The difference in good recruiting is that we understand that destination, cool, but we go three-dimensional. We understand what about this opportunity makes it more probable that you'll actually get there. What's going to shorten the timeline? Yes, we're going to get to Hawaii just like you could in a rowboat, but the JKR ship does it while you're in this cruise liner. The captain knows what they're doing. You have all the scripts ready to go. You have all the tools, the videos, the people resources out in the field to be able to get there. You have all the levers to pull to actually get there. You have the compensation plan, right? Where it's diversified, it's more aggressive than any competitor, and then it's quicker than any competitor. So having those levers actually puts you in control.
Right.
It actually gives you speed towards that goal. Just talking about, hey, can I buy you a steak dinner, kiss your ass, and then hopefully you work with me next summer? That's not a recruiting conversation, right? The recruiting conversation is, I understand where you want to go, and then I'm going to show you the likelihood of doing it here. You may or may not choose it, but I know that I am the quickest to your destination. I'm going to ease up on the amount of effort you have to put in to get there, and the probability of getting there is already a probability that we've established. We have 7-figure reps here at JKR, right? So I think that once you are that person, make the conversation hand-tailored to that person. Show them that you see more in them than they see in themselves, and that you have the path for them to get to that destination.
Okay, speaking of that, this guy right here speaks the language of an incredible effing leader, despite what he thinks about his leadership capabilities.
Yep.
There are bright things in your future in leadership and influence and changing people's lives, and this is just a stepping stone for you developing those skills in recruiting. So as we wrap up here, couldn't help but try and plug my guy Clark. Incredible.
Serious, man.
Be careful whatever you say in front of this guy, because he'll remember it word for word, and it's beneficial, but also makes me a little nervous to share secret things with him. So as we wrap up, you guys, recruiting in life in general is important, but if you want to do something special in business, in sales, in door-to-door, there's a specific psychology and sequence of events that if you want to do it at a high level, you can piece these things together for yourself. And this has been a process over the past 7 years that I've struggled with, and I've gone back and forth with, and I've messed it up so many different ways that I just keep on plugging forward and trying to learn from my mistakes and do it better next time, and surround myself with great recruiters that have great messaging and that can help me bring some clarity to how that psychology should work for my process, because everybody is also going to have to do it a little bit different, because we all come from a different background. We got different resources that we're using to do this.
Yep.
But keep plugging in every week to the Just Real Quick podcast. We love adding value in all these areas of business and leadership and sales to help you take your game to the next level. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to the podcast. Follow my guys on Instagram right here. They're always sharing wisdom. And if you know somebody that could use this message in business, in sales, in door-to-door, make sure that they get a link to the podcast so they can get the same value that you got out of this. And until next time, thank you guys for checking in on the Just Real Quick podcast.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Later on.